Welcome into This Week in Missouri Politics. Election season in full swing. Far too much to talk about to have a featured guest. We're going to jump right into our opinion maker panel. Jeremy, Cady, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
If someone likes Senator Eric Schmidt, I think they have you to thank for it, right?
We worked our butts off to get him elected, and we've been very proud to see what he's been doing up in D.C.
It was a hotter summer 2 years ago than this one.
It was very hot. I think while we were out knocking, it hit 100 degrees a few days, and we sweat quite a bit.
The Prince of Phelps County, Jack Cardetti, thank you so much for joining us.
Great being with this established panel.
Representative Jim Schulte up in the Kingdom of Callaway County. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
And first time on the show, so glad to have former Speaker of the House, one of the founders of the Missouri Times, Jetton. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be back.
Jeremy, let's jump into these amendments. Let's start off with the one everyone talks about, Amendment 3. It is the abortion amendment. Now, my thought is the current law probably is a little further pro-life than where Missourians are. Most Missourians don't talk about abortion at dinner, but I think maybe in the gut, this thing's on the way to passage. Tell folks what's in Amendment 3 that might take this a little more pro-choice than where the state is.
Yeah, so that's probably where I'm at right now, is that it is definitely more pro-choice than where the state's at right now. It's definitely a much larger swing back in the other way. One of the big things with it is that it allows for abortion up to birth. And I think that's a little bit further than a lot of folks are willing. I think a lot of Republicans would be good with a kind of a heartbeat bill where we put a limitation on how far abortions can go. But I think secondarily, I think we need to recognize that it doesn't just specifically talk about abortions. It talks about reproductive health care. And it says that it's not only limited to a lot of these things that are mentioned, including abortion. So this actually opens up the possibility for foreseeing and mandating gender reassignment surgeries and so forth and so on. So I think Missourians need to take a real hard look at what the language really says and what it could potentially do.
Rod, I think you go up to the Kingdom of Callaway. We're up at Holt Summit. We're up in Fulton. I just kind of feel like folks are probably 50-50. And if that's the case in the Kingdom of Callaway, this thing's passing big time.
Yeah, I think it's over if it's 50-50 in the rural areas. If you look at Ohio and kind of study their results, they were 70-30 in the urban in favor of it. They were 60-40 against it in the rural areas. Now, Ohio is a much more urban areas population than what we have in Missouri. But if you can't win outstate on an issue like this, you're toast because the suburbs and the cities are just going to tank it.
We talk about a bill that might come back and say, okay, we're going to open up abortion access a little bit to maybe get more in line where the folks of the state are. I don't think that has a hope of passing the Missouri General Assembly, do you?
No, I learned a long time ago, for every action, there's an equal and opposite overreaction within government. And the thing I'm trying to talk to people about is we're totally ignoring the mental health aspect of all this. And they're going to play to the sympathy of rape and incest, and it's a horrible thing, but any woman that's a victim of that is going to require counseling regardless of what choice she makes. Any woman that has an abortion is going to require counseling regardless, because it troubles them the rest of their life, and they need. So I really think we should change some of our focus to the mental health prospect of this and deal with that.
Jack Cardetti, I think that right now, if I had to pick, I would bet a lot of money on Amendment 3 pass again. And I've always said on the show here, passing handily. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I think if you look at a brand new public poll out this week, had it at 58%, had it with a healthy lead. I think that's an absolute reaction to the fact that Missouri's current law when it comes to choice is so extreme, without the exceptions or whatever. So they're running a campaign where you simply have to tell people, let's overturn this total and complete ban. And that's why they're having so much success out on the campaign trail.
Let's now, Roger, let's talk about the political fallout from this. The Republicans tried every single which way to maneuver and do anything but go try to talk to the people of the state about this amendment. Finally, the Supreme Court on the last day to certify basically said, Jay Ashcroft, we're going to run you out of town if you don't put this on the ballot. So it's going to be on the ballot now. How does this affect, does this ensure a Crystal Quaid maybe outpaces Nicole Galloway? Does this ensure some Democrats in these suburban districts where this is very likely, Amendment 3 will run very strong, does this give them a tailwind?
Well, I think we can look back at the history kind of this issue, and you talk about them 5 challenges to get it to where it is, to the language the way it is. And the language is probably much more pro-choice, let's just say, than what the pro-lifers would have wanted. The fiscal notes on there is the same thing. So how does that play out? For years and years, we picked up seats and won the majority because the Democrats had to support partial birth abortion. And we were able to just heat them over the head, win race after race after race. Suddenly we get what we all said we wanted, and now We're kind of on the extreme side because we know that if you put rape and incest exceptions in there, it goes up to 75, 80, even 82%. People support that, right? So if you look at the debate that just came out with Kamala and Trump, where did they fight? He was for exceptions of rape and incest, wasn't for a ban. She didn't want to talk about late-term abortions or doing that. I mean, so they're both wanting to get away from those extremes. But the problem we got in the legislature, we've always had it, is Republicans can't get away from their base that wants the ban, and the Democrats can't get away from their most vocal base that wants all the way up till birth. And so how does that play out? I think the race that most concerns me from a Republican side is the U.S. Senate race with Josh Hawley. I mean, he's a 11-point lead a while ago, and all of our statewides, 11 to 15 points probably. But if that suburban turnout, if you look at those numbers, and that turnout's much higher, yeah, the 60-40 may hit out there in the rural areas, where you're from, where I'm from. But when you get to those suburbs of Platte, Cass, St. Charles, Jefferson, where do those suburban folks have? We know what the urban folks will do. And could you get a high enough turnout in those suburban and urban areas to maybe eat into a little bit of that? I don't know that it's going to be enough for Crystal Quade. Can Trump keep his 15, 17-point lead like back in 2016, or will it slide down to 9 or 8? If it slides down to 9 or 8 and this abortion issue is on the ballot, don't forget, we have a 16-1 money advantage right now for the pro folks trying to get it passed versus against. 16-1. I mean, that's a lot of effort for get out.
As a Republican, I respect that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of money. So that, we've gone, what, 44, 52, 58? 16-1, that ain't going to change. And the question is, how does it affect some of us?
You've been on the ground in a U.S. Senate race just 2 summers ago, 2 falls ago as well. Tell me, if this issue is a 60-40 issue, which I think you're somewhere between 55 and 60 is where I probably see this ending up if I had to guess. But it'll be much higher in the suburbs. What's that going to do to I've never thought Josh Hawley's seat was really in play. Could it be in play?
I don't see it being in play. And to be honest, I don't see a whole lot of, outside of the ones that are competitive already, I don't see a lot of them that are actually in play because of Amendment 3. And I think time and time again, I think if you look historically, the left has thrown a lot of different items on the ballot, and they continually do this, and it hasn't helped them yet. I would say, and I've talked to a lot of voters, done a lot of door knocking, for Senator Schmidt and others all across the state of Missouri. Now I've talked to Republicans, especially right after Roe versus Wade was undone, and I would talk to some of them, and they would be like, "Hey, we need to fix this. We need to fix this." I spoke to this one older woman. She's like, "This needs to get fixed, but you know what? Right now, I also want to make sure that I can spend time with my grandkids and go and visit them, and that's why I'm voting for Trump. But this has to get fixed someday." So I think you're going to find a small group of those Republicans that are probably going to support Amendment 3 still vote for people that are going to reduce their taxes and rein in government regulation.
Jack says 2016. I've heard credible cases. Democrats are going to make significant gains in West County, St. Louis. Are going to make significant gains in the Northland. Trump's so terrible. This issue, that issue, right to work, all these things. It's never really had a breakthrough. And I've always thought maybe the reason was the issue that was very popular with the public, the opposing right to work, let's say, was on in August. It was not on in November. This time it's on in November. Does that change the narrative and actually make some of these suburban seats where the issue is popular actually elect the candidate that supports that issue?
Yeah, I think this time might be a little different. In the past, right, when you have August elections, right to work, Medicaid expansion, all those happened in August. They were out of the way by November. And even the November elections, we legalized marijuana and cannabis back in November of 22, but that didn't bring new people to the polls. Missourians that were already going to the polls supported it. They supported it in a lot of places. This is an issue that has potential to bring new people to the polls, and that's when you see the dynamics change in some of these races. I think in some of those, if you're in a few of those state Senate races that are in suburban areas, people that you never expected to be out to the polls are out of the polls, that's where this could make a real difference.
All right, give me a prediction. Is Rod right? Is the U.S. Senate race going to get close?
I'm going to have to disagree on that.
I'm going to say close is within 6-7 points.
Within 6-7, I can see that.
What do you think?
You look at the polling that came out this week, the Senate race is much closer here than the governor's race, for instance. Now, some of that I think is Kehoe. Right? Kehoe had a very moderate
Mike Kehoe is the bull of the
that it came out of there, but the Senate race is closer. So I think, again, this is a red state, right? But this is one where I think you may see this race tight.
I don't think you can compare anybody to Mike Kehoe. I mean, Mike Kehoe is the bull of the woods. He's his own thing. But will this race tighten up? Will folks Maybe they have some reservations about Holly, but once they get a good dose of Lucas Coons, are they really going to go that way?
You know, at first I was worried about Lucas Coons, but then I watched him hear from Jeff City. I mean, he went to school with my son, so I watched him. But when he stood in front of the furniture store on McCarty Street and said urban blight caused this when it was clearly the tornado, the local people turned on him. They said this
It's
had
a
nothing
little
to
hint
do
of
with
phoniness that
Yes.
I think is folks can see through that camera lens. Rod, you think this race gets 6, 7? How close?
I think it could. I don't know that he loses. I mean, obviously Holly's a great candidate and people love him. I don't think he loses. But I'll just give you an example. I was in Wildwood, Missouri at a Saturday morning
I hate
prayer
that
meeting.
for you. Hope things turn around.
I'm at a prayer meeting with some guys, and they asked me, hey, what do you think about this Lucas Coates? I said, well, yeah, he's a Marine. I like that. And they said, and this is like hardcore folks who like Holly, and they said, boy, I saw his ads, and I really like him. He seems like a really good guy. So, yeah, when the other side comes out and starts hitting it, Lucas is going to have some troubles. But the thing to wonder about is if you're in the Senate majority fund nationwide, Missouri's a cheap state. If he starts pulling in 8, 9 points, why not throw $10 million out there and give it a shot? And then the turnout problem, Jack talked about, for us at least, for our House members and things like that. Because if we go back to the abortion issue, yeah, we know the suburbs and the suburbans and the urban are more likely. But if you look at the crosstabs problem, you're going to see younger people really much more likely to vote for the abortion issue. Now, do they show up and vote? Does they get motivated? Does a $10 million influx for Kuntz or things like that, 16-1 on the abortion thing? That's the worry I think we have to think about in our caucus and our Senate and House races.
Do you think the decision for Senator Holly to agree to this debate might be tied to seeing something like what you're seeing? You don't debate him if you're going to boat race him, right?
I don't know the calculation on that. I mean, I think Holly's one of the most polished speakers I've seen in years.
100%.
So if I was him, I think I'd want to debate every day, day in and out, because I would assume with his abilities, he would just kick anybody's tail.
He is good in a debate setting, right?
Josh, Holly has some good messaging. The issue is he is a firebrand, right? And I think you look at the January 6th stuff, the fact that he's raised his profile a lot, but raising your profile isn't always a good thing.
The only thing that hurt him on January 6th, I don't think it was pumping up the weirdo protester people. I think it was prancing away from them is what hurt him.
You mean when he was sprinting down the halls of the Capitol as the people he was cheering on were coming to
That's
his
what
office?
hurt him, right?
Yeah,
I don't think
problematic.
the fist thing really, I don't think care, but I mean the other part, yeah, I think people are like, what's that?
Yeah, he's got your back until he doesn't.
Well, we're going to have your back if you'll stick around with us. We're going to talk about sports wagering and the latest in the DEI scandal after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. 50-some-odd days of the election. We're going to keep our opinion maker panhandle, Jack Cardetti. It's not just abortion on the ballot, it's sports wagering. You are a very polished Phelps County political professional. I'm a simple white trash hillbilly. But I don't understand how people that get elected screaming about liberty and freedom and make your own choices tell me the little pittance of money I don't get taxed out of, I can't bet on the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's clearly why Missourians are in a much different place. New poll out this week, 27-point lead for Amendment 2 campaign. And that's because Missourians know and appreciate the fact that tens of thousands of Missourians are betting on sports today in the state of Missouri. They're either going to do so on an illegal offshore website or they're going to travel to one of the 7 of our 8 bordering states that already has sports betting. So we'll have Missourians betting today, but we're not getting any of the benefit. New study out this week that shows that over the next 5 years, this would bring $102 million to Missouri public classrooms. I think that's why this is such common sense to the voters.
But I also think if you work at one of the 2 flag stores in St. James, how far are you from a bridge across the Mississippi River to go gamble? And who knows all these website things? It just seems like, just get out of my way, government. Just move on. Do something else. Go government someone else.
And at a minimum, we shouldn't have public policy in the state that encourages people to go over to Illinois and to Kansas to take their money, to make their bets, to go eat at their restaurants over there. Let's keep that here in the state of Missouri. Let's be able to fund education with tens of thousands more in dollars each year.
Rod Jetton, I just don't quite understand. I thought Republicans were for liberty and leaving me alone. Why don't they just leave me alone to gamble how I want to gamble?
Well, it's always been a tough issue. This is where your social, moral conservatives come in that are kind of opposed to gaming, and they do carry a big stick, and it's always kind of held back, kind of the sin taxes, so to speak. But right now, I mean, the polling data just continues to move in favor with the education message, supporting the education. You got the teachers on TV; they sound very compelling. Now the casinos are coming out. Not because they're against gaming, but because they're wanting to protect their turf, and they're going to have a lot more money. But I don't know what hook they use to try to win this. Now, it's easier to get a no than a yes, but they're going to probably spend a lot of money in the rural areas trying to get people that are predisposed, a little more churchgoers, to vote no. And I don't know what.
Well, I'm predisposed to vote no. I agree with you. I think the case they're making is this isn't really going to go to education. I mean, the commercials I've seen aren't about don't help out the Cardinals bullpen by letting them have gambling revenue money. It's, this money won't actually go to schools.
Every amendment we've put on here that was going to save the schools, save the veterans' homes, save the commissions, none of it's materialized. We were going to have marijuana was going to save the veterans' homes and the cemeteries. They're underfunded and still looking for money. Lottery was going to save the schools, and we were going to have all this education money from the lottery. Where is it now? I don't trust the process that we're passing another amendment that's guaranteeing all this funding for a feel-good thing that needs the money, but it doesn't do what they say it's going to do in the long term. So I'm not trusting of the issue.
Jeremy, I don't trust the government either, but I also think if people are for liberty and freedom, why can't I just gamble on the Chiefs if I want to?
No, and I think a lot of folks would agree with you. And goodness gracious, I'm pretty certain pretty much anyone under 40 is going to be voting for this regardless. You know, the big harper that I have with it is, generally speaking, I don't think gambling should be in the Constitution to begin with. I think this should be something that's done statutorily. I'm generally not in favor of enlarging the Constitution and adding more and more to it. But to your point, I really don't care if you pull out your phone and you place a bet on a game. I'm not going to do it, but you feel free to do something.
It just is down. Maybe it should be in the Constitution up, but it wouldn't be at this point if it had been addressed by the legislature any time in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that the legislature, this is another issue with the legislature. It's common sense. 38 states have sports betting in the United States right now. This is a common sense issue the legislature should have taken up and passed years ago. They haven't. Now Missourians are going to have to do that, and this is a really good thing because the only thing guaranteed right now is the Missouri classrooms are getting $0 right now while we're traveling to other states to fund their classrooms. That's not right.
Rod, let's put Jack on the spot here. What percentage is this going to pass by?
That's a good question. If we take everybody in general, urban, suburban, rural, young, old, young people are really going to be impacted by this, I think. But I bet it gets up towards 55, 56.
What do you think happens here?
Oh, it's going to pass.
It's like Price Right. You going above Rod? 56?
Oh, you want me to go $1 or $1?
Well, that's why you go $1 or something if you want to really get him. But
sure, yeah, 1% more than Rod. That's where I'll.
So 56 now 57. I'll go 58. Where's it going to be, Jack?
Well, if you look at ballot initiatives, those that pass in Greene County, St. Charles County, Platte County, Clay County, Jefferson County, those are the ones that do well statewide. This is going to do well. You're going to see probably, I think, a double-digit victory here.
So you're saying 59?
I'm going to say 55.1. Price is right, Rod.
What's going to happen, Jeremy?
I see it passing too. I mean, 55, 56. I think that's well within range. Yeah.
All right, Jeremy. This week it came out that we were reliably told the DEI scandal at the Department of Insurance. It was just these conferences. It wasn't anything else. Well, unfortunately, this week There was testimony apparently given in 2022 in front of the United States Congress. Maxine Waters had a DEI committee. Luckily for Missouri, the person who was named the ranking here was Ann Wagner. The Missouri Department of Commerce and Insurance came here, came to Congress on your behalf, Jeremy, and on Rod and Jim's and Mike Parsons, and said, we're doing DEI and we're answering the national call to action on DEI. We're coming up with best practices to implement DEI. This was sworn testimony before Congress. Where does it end over there?
I don't know, and this is something that I think we all should be watchful of. The Security Exchange Commission tried to force companies to implement DEI practices as well. I think we get into a lot of trouble if we have government entities forcing private citizens, private companies to take on DEI and those type of policies. If a company wants to do it on their own, that's their business. That's their business. But whenever you have a State Department saying, no, these are the new rules and you need to play by these new rules, I think that's crossing the line.
Jim, we've watched these poor farm mutuals suffer under this administration. I was always like, why? Why are the premiums going up? What's this reinsurance scam out of Bermuda? It's easy. You have a left-wing, obsessed, DEI-obsessed administration, and I think there's a direct connection between folks' insurance premiums go up 200 and 300% with a department obsessed about DEI.
No, I don't disagree, but I'm seeing now where big corporations are starting to cancel those programs. They're starting to pull away because it's costing them too much money.
University of Missouri.
When you start hitting people in the pocketbook and they're losing money, they're going to rethink this position on this, and hopefully that'll turn it.
But it's interesting to me, you have the governor, lieutenant governor, you have Andrew Bailey, attorney general, Vivek Malik, state treasurer, you go down to J.S. Ruff, secretary of state, Cindy O'Loughlin, John Patterson, Dean Plocker, the entire federal delegation, Holly Schmidt, all speak with one voice. 16 of the 17 departments get the message. One just tells them, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yes, I can tell you, just being over in the Capitol this last year, the DEI debate and kind of the buzz and wanting to do something on it was pretty strong when I showed up in November. As session went on, it seemed like the old hornet nest kind of calmed down and other projects and things. But this right here, this is poking the nest. The bees are buzzing. It is going to be bad next session.
Was it part of that you were reliably informed DEI wasn't happening in the state of Missouri?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I think we've shown pretty clearly that sworn testimony before Congress says it is. Jack, to me, it's not even about that. You have the entire administration, the entire supermajority party speaking with one voice. 16 of the 17 department directors got the message. One didn't. It's kind of about insubordination.
Well, the interesting thing about the Department of Insurance is there's almost no general revenue funding in that department. So if you look at just structurally in the state of Missouri, they're less beholden to the legislature
every time they
than
should
almost
be
every
appropriated.
executive. Now, having said that, from a practical standpoint, obviously I served in the governor's office a couple of times. When the general public knows the name of a cabinet secretary in the state of Missouri, that's generally not good news.
They would not have pulled this on Jay Nixon.
Yeah.
You would not have had a Department of Insurance mandating you use non-union contractors to build your new insurance office. If they would have been, you'd have had a problem. I wouldn't want to see Mr. Watson on the day you pulled that.
Yeah, they obviously were a very cohesive team. A little surprised that this is happening at the end of the Parsons administration, if that's the view of the governor's office.
Give me a prediction. End of the day, do this just get swept under the rug? Or does somebody address this? I think Mike Parsons can look Mike Keogh in the eye and say, I'm giving you 16 of 17 departments better than I found them. Can he look him in the eye until he handles this and say, this department on 17 on 17 is better than I found him?
I'm not quite sure how it's going to be handled, but I don't know. I guess my bet would be that this probably gets prolonged until Keogh comes in and then makes his appointment.
Who cleans this mess up, Mike Parsons or Mike Keogh?
I think that Governor Parsons is going to do everything he can to hand off a state government potentially to Lieutenant Governor Keogh if he's able to win. That's as frictionless as possible. I think the transition that you're going to see between these two governors might be smoother than we've seen in a long time.
Who drains the Department of Insurance swamp? Is it Mike Parsons or is it Mike Keogh?
It might be a collective effort, and they talk and decide which is the best way to handle this.
If they wait until January, is it going to be Jim Schulte in the General Assembly?
No, I think they'll handle it before that. I don't see them letting this thing fester. I wouldn't.
Who solves this problem? Does this just continue to pour out testimony like this every week and more scandals? Does Mike Parsons handle it, or does he just have it to Mike Keogh and he handles it?
I think Parsons sets the table up for Keogh to come in and fix it easily. He probably doesn't get the credit. Keogh will take care of him, and that'll be the one, but Parsons will probably help make sure everything's set up to where that falls down pretty quick.
Okay, let's talk about this governor's race real quick. Crystal Quaid, very competent nominee. The Democrats have put somebody that could do the job, well thought of. The abortion thing, I think she's going to run a tighter race and set a higher floor for Democrats than maybe we've seen the last few cycles.
That's very possible. But still, I mean, Kehoe is an amazing candidate. I mean, we saw that through the primary. And so it might have been one of those things here where if we had a weaker Republican candidate for governor, that might be very well the case. But I think Kehoe's, he's out there still working really, really hard for this race. That's not going to let down. And so Kehoe's going to keep up the pressure the entire time.
Look, I think running for re-election, Governor Parson, it was a tough race for Nicole Galloway. Crystal Quade do a little better against Mike Kehoe?
Yeah, well, I think where this might really get felt is Crystal Quade's been a great candidate. She ran a great primary race, to be the self-funder. She is grabbed on to obviously the choice issue. So I think the fact that she's running so well, it may not be enough to put her in the governor's mansion, but the coattails of having a good candidate up above you, if you're part of the Democratic ticket, are going to be felt. And I think Democrats have a lot to be thankful for her running this race.
You've served with her, competent, right? A very competent person, qualified to lead that ticket, and I think doing a pretty good job so far.
Absolutely. She did a great job as a minority leader and was approachable. You could talk to her. She wasn't a one-way type person, but yeah, she's a very savvy politician, and they better respect that.
Mike Kehoe's the bull of the woods. Who'd want to run against Mike Kehoe? I mean, I don't know who would.
To see somebody be minority leader for as long as she has, especially in term limited areas, is amazing.
Yep.
But she picked the worst year to run for governor statewide against Mike Kehoe, and I actually anticipate seeing a bigger gap between Trump and Harris as we go on, and I think it's going to be, I think she'll have a hard time doing any better than Nicole, and I would expect her to do worse. No fault of her own, just sometimes your ship's on the
Well, and look, part of the calculation there is she could have very well gotten a Bill Eigel or a Jay Ashcroft as opponent, right? And then she's in really in the ballgame there.
We're about to be out of the ballgame with a minute left. Who won the week?
Whiteman Air Force Base in the state of Missouri for getting the new stealth bombers.
Absolutely. Who won the week?
The St. Louis State Senate race over there is really interesting. The choice issue is going to have a big impact on that race. Joe Peerless probably won the week.
I think it's going to be a big fight over there. Who won the week?
We just got back, 30 representatives and senators just got back last night from touring the border in McAllen, Texas. And firsthand experience on what they're dealing with down there and what's really going on. It was a lightning trip.
Who won the week?
Missourians for Constitutional Freedom. I mean, getting that on the ballot, the way they got it, that's a big win. But I tell you, I don't know about the judiciary. Some of those seats are probably going to get a little hot. There's a lot of discontent there.
It flares up every so often.
I think it's flaring.
I'm going to say J.C. Winship. A terrific person, one of the most positive people, longtime Republican activist, worked with Congresswoman Wagner for over a dozen years. Terrific life, well lived. I think J.C. Winship is the type of person that everybody in politics should aspire to be like. Hope you'll win the week with us next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.